at the
As a premier community in Hampton Roads, James City County strives to maintain a high quality of life for all citizens through sound fiscal management and legislative actions. In an ongoing effort to increase transparency, your Board of Supervisors holds public meetings to garner citizen input before making important decisions. Here's tonight's meeting agenda. Stay tuned. The Board of Supervisors meeting will begin shortly.
Call this meeting of the James City County James City County Service Authority Board of Directors to order. Good evening, Mr. Powell.
Good evening.
If you could please call the roll.
Ms. Sadler.
Here.
Mr. McGlennon.
Here.
Mr. Hippel.
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Here.
Ms. Larson.
Here. Are there any presentations this evening?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right. That brings us to our consent calendar. If there can be a motion to approve the consent calendar, 1 minutes adoption.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. No public hearings, correct?
No, ma'am, and no board considerations.
Thank you. Are there any board requests and directives? Thank you. That brings us to our general manager's update. Mr. Powell?
Just very briefly, I wanted to give you an update on where we are with the CARES Act funding and utilization. As you may recall, JCSA received $316,000 in CARES Act funds to assist customers who are in our arrears on their utility bills. Customers must complete an attestation that they are delinquent due to a COVID-related hardship. These funds must be committed by October 31st, and to date, we have awarded over $180,000 in funds, but we still have about $130,000 remaining. Earlier this year, delinquent customers received a door tag, making them aware of the availability of this funding. Last month, delinquent customers received a letter letting them know that they're delinquent and making them aware of this program. And then earlier this month, delinquent customers received text messages as a follow-up to the letter. There have also been messages on the bills informing customers of the availability of funds. Starting next week, delinquent customers will get another door tag. It's going to be about 1,000 door tags that will be distributed next week. Again, letting them know of the availability of funding and that they are at risk of being cut off. In addition, we have opened this program to businesses. Previously, we had prioritized residential customers, but it is now open to businesses as well, and that we're hoping that these changes will facilitate further utilization of the funds.
Mr. Powell, has there been any effect of some of these methods you've been reaching out with, whether the door tags or the letters? Do you notice any kind of uptick in?
Yes, we have received. There's definitely been an uptick since the letters and the text messages went out within the last month or so. We've been getting probably a couple $1,000s on average, probably a couple $1,000s a day for the last month or so.
I would say that one of the things that we really need to drive home to customers with delinquent bills, if they are having difficulty paying those bills due to the pandemic, that they should realize that it helps them, because it is money that is a grant that doesn't have to be repaid.
Exactly.
It just will address their bill. And it helps us because it means that the service authorities doesn't lose that revenue.
Do we know how many delinquent people there are out there and what the actual number is?
So, delinquency is defined differently depending on, what we're talking about.
Right.
But for the purposes of CARES Act funding, we currently have about 1,000 customers who are delinquent. And that's the 1,000 door tags that'll be distributed next week.
And do we know how much that equals in dollars?
I
know it's
don't
probably-
off the top of my head. I think I can probably get that information for you, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
There is information. You sent us the dashboard for this month just a
Yes.
little while ago, and that does have information about the numbers of
Yes.
delinquencies and the total
Right.
funding, which I think
Yeah.
was over $300,000.
Yeah. The delinquency in that dashboard is different from delinquency defined by the CARES Act funds.
It was a 90-day delinquency. I
So,
think,
yeah,
so
so I think with CARES Act, it's 60 days. So there are some
it'd
differences.
be higher.
Yeah.
Any other further comments or questions? All right, anything else that you wish to share? And we got your dashboard earlier?
Yes.
Okay, all right. With that, we'll motion to adjourn until 5 PM on October 12th, 2021 for our regular meeting. All those in favor, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Call, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Ms. Sadler?
Here.
Ms. Sadler represents the Stonehouse District and is vice chair to the board. Ms. Larson?
Here.
Ms. Larson represents the Berkeley District. Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. McGlennon represents the Roberts District. Mr. Hippel?
Here.
Mr. Hippel represents the Powhatan District and is chair to the board. Sitting to my far left is Assistant County Attorney Liz Parham, and I'm Scott Stevens, County Administrator. It's my pleasure to be clerk to the board. In addition, Mr. Chair, the County Attorney's Office has recused itself from participation in case number Z-21-0013. So Attorney Liz White from the law firm of Sands Anderson is representing the county for that case. Ms. White is in the audience and available if needed. And with that, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. All right, and Mr. Eisenhower, he's online, correct?
Yes, sir.
There you go. Welcome. He wants to go ahead and join the meeting electronically. And so I'll need a motion. But before that, can you let us know, Mr. Eisenhower, where you are for the record?
Yes, for the record, I'm in Moneta, Virginia.
There you go. Thank you very much. And now may I have a
Chairman,
motion?
move to include Mr. Eisenhower in the meeting electronically.
Thank you. Roll call, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Welcome. Can you hear us all right, Jim?
And loud and clear.
Good, great, okay. All right, we'll move on into, before we have a moment of silence, we'll have the pledge leader, and it is my honor to announce the pledge leaders tonight. The pledge leaders will be led by Owen Ellis, Daniel Richardson, Andrew Salensi, I think I pronounced that right, Thomas Tate, and they're the Arrow of Light Den for Club Pack 103, chartered by the Williamsburg United Methodist Church in Colonial Williamsburg. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great job.
Good
guys.
job.
I've got some pins for y'all.
Oh, they're gonna, I think they want to, Mike, I think they want a picture.
You want to stand up here maybe, or you want to? Yeah, you can stand up there. Yeah.
Thank you all. Next, we'll move into public comment. Mike Joseph, our first public comment speaker. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to address the supervisors. But my subject tonight is I want to make a few comments about the comprehensive plan that you will be voting on, I assume, sometime this month. But I was here in July to make my comment, and I'd like to be back again to bring it to our attention so we don't forget these issues. But my comment was in regards to two things, windmills and carbon sequestration. My position is I would like to see them taken out of the comprehensive plan, and because they imply that we're going to do something about it. And let me address windmills first. In the plan, there's no specification whether it's, or limitations, whether it's residential or commercial. Some of these residentials can get 120 feet high with maybe 20-foot blades. Let's see. The other thing about them is about health. Many people complain about the noise, about the birds. The other thing is I call it strobing, that on a sunny day, the blades going a very low rotation will create a shadow as it rotates. It will block the sun, then it block the sun, it comes around again. So I call that strobing. Environmental problems, or I say problems, is the aesthetics. Some people call it visual nuisance. But one can remember, or I can remember, the evolution of TV cables. Originally, they were on lines. They shared the telephone lines before, our cell phones and cell towers. We had telephone lines. So, and then, let's see, then I can remember TV towers, antennas, in the 50s. That was the way you got television. And every house had one. Let's see. And then once again, billboards. There's a time that there was billboards everywhere, and we put restrictions on that. So that's what I consider the visual nuisance, and we don't need to go through that again. So there's two, you have environmental or visual nuisance, health problems, and no control over the size of them. The other thing I would like to bring to attention is carbon sequestration. That too should be taken out of the comprehensive plan because it implies we're going to do something. So somebody trying to promote their position would say, well, it's in your comprehensive plan, It's a very expensive thing, and it's a technology that's still in development. So you take the Exxons and the Department of Energy, they are working on that, so we don't need to try to duplicate it. Here's a case I think we need to be a follower, not a leader. And as this environmental technology develops, there might be another alternative. So we don't need to jump the gun, but be ready to respond when it's timely. So my position would be like to take them out of the comprehensive plan. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask if the gentleman would indicate his name and address for the record?
Your address? I didn't even catch it when you...
I'm sorry, I'm Mike Joseph, and I live at 6631 Rexford Lane here in Williamsburg. That's up at Colonial Heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dan Rosie, did I pronounce that properly?
Bruce.
Roos. I'm sorry.
Ruth knows me. I'm part of Ruth's district, right?
Should have sent it down to Ruth.
So, yeah, Dan Roos, 3292 Reed's Way here in Williamsburg, part of Ruth's district. I'd also like to talk about the comp plan as well, just a couple of points. So I spent 24 years in the Army. By the way, thank you for your service. You guys too. I mean, it's a tough job. I'd say that right now. So thank you very much for what you guys do. I spent 24 years in the Army as a logistics transportation officer, and I've got an economics degree, master's degree, and run budgets of, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I currently run a financial services brokerage. It's very successful. Thank you, Jesus. But my point is that, as I'm looking at the comp plan, it seems like the purpose of the comp plan is to build long-term development for James City County so that we could be successful and grow and do great things. So as I'm looking through the comp plan, there's a couple of things I'd like to address. He talked about wind farms, so I won't address that. I also agree that we shouldn't do that at this moment, but the solar panels as well. I'm concerned that we just haven't done enough research on those things. I talked about this in July. Part of my challenge is that as I'm doing the research, and what it's revealing to me is that the solar panels are only 26 to 28% efficient right now. Plus, the weather in James City County is not the same as in Florida and Nevada, where it's like sunny 24/7. But they're also made of hazardous materials at worst, but toxic materials, really at worst. And they only last about 10 to 15 years. And so they can't be recycled. Like we can't like break those down and then, build something with it. When the solar panel's built and it's done, it's done. We got nowhere to go with that. So the second and third order effects that I see from that are not beneficial to James City County's economy. It might look a little bit good if we put them in place today, but 10, 15 years down the road, there's going to be a massive public economical impact to the county. And I don't know that we've actually done enough research to actually figure out what that's going to look like. And so I would say we need to pause on the solar piece as well, just so that we've got enough information to make sure that we're moving forward sensibly. On the carbon sequestration, my concerns with that are that I don't know how. I mean, maybe this, I didn't read this in the comp plan, and maybe there's a plan for this, but I haven't seen it. We're a tourist organization or county. I mean, we have people coming in and out here all the time, especially, before the pandemic. I mean, like lots of people, right? And I certainly expect us to get back to that. Well, how can you regulate the carbon that's coming from thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people throughout a given year? How are we going to regulate that? And if we're not going to regulate, if we're not going to, charge the people that are coming into the county, which I think would probably limit tourism, which would hurt our economy, then you're going to have to raise taxes and fees on the people that live here to make up the difference for the carbon that those people bring in. And that will also impact James City County negatively because you're going to have people leave. And so I think that having us do the carbon sequestration, and I mean, I don't even understand about pumping it into the ground. I mean, we can have a whole nother conversation on that. I don't even understand how that would even work. But my point is that although these sound good, I think that we need to table those, don't have them in the comp plan now, but let's do some more research. Let's figure out what that plan looks like, and then what are the second and third order effects as we get 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road, and will we really achieve the results that we're looking for today? And so because of that, I think that we need to vote no on those things now. Let's keep looking at them. We can come up with solution sets that are going to be viable for us in the future. Then that may be something that we can put back in there. So I recommend no on those things. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gilbert Petring? I know I messed that up. I don't know if that's...
So I'm Gil Petrina. I live at 4747 Yeardley Loop in Berkeley District. So appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm retired Air Force. I flew B-2, B-52 stealth bomber, and had the opportunity to participate as a defense contractor in the study of effects of renewable energy projects on military missions. The area we're specifically tasked to work with was the Nevada Test and Training Range takes up most of Nevada. It's 3 million acres, about 4,500 square miles. Compare that to about 179 square miles here in James City County. So what I want to do is just take the opportunity to share some of the insights from that work and scale it down as it relates to what both Mike and Dan have talked about in the comp plan and what I see. One of the huge things that I see in the comp plan is gathering the appropriate expertise. So as you look through the comp plan, any place where you have study, investigate, explore, analyze, those things that you're going to have experts go do are very costly and take a long time. For what we did in the Air Force, we needed people who understood the Air Force mission, the military mission side of this, the military technologies, and then getting into the intricacies of the renewable technology and the ability to understand primary, secondary, and you really need to go down to third and fourth order effects. Renewable energies, you think it's very simple. I'll slap up a windmill, but you turn over that rock. There are typically a couple rocks under there. Some of them are slimy, and you have to turn those over and address them as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit. When you look at the military missions, the technology is both complex and has complex interactions at multiple levels. When we looked at windmills, what the interactions we were looking at was the effect on radars, aircraft radars, and the Doppler effects of what that meant for safety of flight and being able to pick up both air and ground targets. For solar panels and collectors, we had to deal with the interactions of how that affects night vision devices, sensors based on aircraft, and how long these solar devices hold infrared energy. I know we have not directly here in the county, but a lot of activity going on around here that affects military missions, safety of flight with the airport, Newport News Airport, even Richmond Airport, about how far these things can be seen. For solar energy type things, when you're looking through a night vision device or a sensor, it can be seen for miles. So that's something to consider as we look at this in the James City County area. The scaling of projects is important in the consideration of placement. A sprawling wind or solar farm has different effects than possibly an individual one has. The big one being, what are the roads and power lines and other infrastructure to support that? So if you have a sprawling farm with 1,000 solar panels or 1,000 wind turbines, you're going to need roads to go and service that. And as was already discussed, the replacement of those and the modification to power lines and power distributions, that's going to add more infrastructure. So people think they just put up a solar panel or solar farm. There's a whole bunch that comes behind that. The other thing discussed, affordable technologies to meet the mitigation efforts. When you look at carbon neutrality, there aren't affordable technologies available right now to go meet the objectives that are outlined by both the state and the federal levels for what they want to do. So that's going to require more research, more investment into do that, and all of that's going to come down to taxpayer money. When we look at the Nevada Test and Training Range, the Air Force and military mission in general, our job was to do training for complex military missions in a safe, effective manner. As Mr. Roos pointed out in the comp plan, as we look at our mission, it should be the preservation and protection of the watersheds, the rural lands, the river vistas, and, as he pointed out, the historic character of James City County in a fiscally responsible and economically viable manner. So as you look at the renewable energies, I know my time's coming up, I urge you to make sure you understand the complex interactions and the expertise and the level of expertise that might not be there to consider all the effects that you're going to do in the comp plan. As I see the comprehensive plan, it should be actionable items that we can do. So if we don't really plan on doing these, and the citizens of James City County don't really want to pay extra for these, James City County may not be the most appropriate area for some of this. We can help support outlying areas, support the economic development here, but because of the tight-knit area of this area, and as Mr. Roos pointed out, the tourist industry here, it might not be appropriate. I would love for us to be a leader in another area. I just think it may not be the renewable energy side of things. So I just ask for your consideration as you look through that comprehensive plan. I think especially because as we look at the expertise here, who you're going to need to come in and integrate renewable energy into the fabric of James City County. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, that was our last speaker. So now we'll move into our consent calendar, and there's no issues on the consent calendar. So next we'll move into our public hearings. And our PC rep is Mr. Frank Polster. How you doing? Welcome. Thank you. And we'll move into number one, which is Z-21-0013, 1826 Jamestown Road and 259 Sandy Bay Road rezoning. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mr. Vernon Getty has applied on behalf of Mr. Connor Halfpenny to rezone approximately 3.4 acres of land located at 1826 Jamestown Road and 259 Sandy Bay Road from B1 General Business and LB Limited Business to B1 with proffers. The site is located inside the PSA and is designated neighborhood commercial in both the current 2035 and draft 2045 comprehensive plans. The proposed use is a small-scale brewery with a tap room and coffee shop, which will be known as Frothy Brewhouse. The proposal includes extinguishing the boundary line between the two parcels to create one cohesive site. About half of the existing 5,000 square foot building will contain the brewing and production facilities, and the other half will house the tap room and coffee shop, along with offices and storage. Meal options will be provided by a third-party food truck on site. The outdoor area includes an existing patio and open-air roof structure, which will be used as patron space with seating and outdoor game areas. The proposal includes improvements to the 50-foot CCC buffer along Jamestown Road and consolidation of the existing entrances to better manage traffic flow. Impervious surface is proposed to be reduced as part of the redevelopment, and the existing wooded buffer along the rear will remain. A shared parking agreement with the adjacent property to the east is proposed as an overflow parking option. The applicant has also proffered to restrict access from Sandy Bay Road, provide additional turn lane warrants should there ever be a future expansion, and limit by right B1 uses to be more in keeping with LB. Since the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant has also proffered to redirect any amplified music away from Sandy Bay Road. The Planning Commission recommended approval with a vote of 4-1-1. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning will not negatively impact surrounding development, and the proffers will help mitigate impacts that are generated by the proposal. Staff finds that the redevelopment of the parcel for a brewery and tap room is consistent with the 2035 and 2045 comprehensive plans recommended uses in GSAs. Staff recommends that the board approve the application and accept the voluntary proffers. I'd be happy to any questions you may have for staff, and the applicant is also here.
Questions?
Could you tell us what are some possible uses, say, that this brewery did not go there? What's something else that could possibly go there? If a towing company had come in and said, we want to come here, was that a possibility for that site?
Currently, yeah, so 1826 is currently zoned B1 and 259 is currently zoned LB. There's no existing proffers that staff is aware of, so anything that's by right in either of those districts on their respective parcels could go in today, just subject to the ordinance. There are some specially permitted uses that would need an SUP.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Welcome.
Members of the board.
Yes, sir.
If we could bring up the master plan, please. I think if we bring up that proposed master plan, this might help to understand one of the nearby homeowners' concerns voiced at our 4 August Planning Commission hearing. And so where I've placed the mouse is on a gazebo, and that gazebo was part of, if I can stop moving it around, there it is, down in the bottom left. That gazebo there is planned as an outdoor patio area that would have a background music played through speakers and a nearby area for food trucks. The homeowner's concern was the potential of high decibel levels generated from the music played in the area. Staff indicated that the distance of the 4 dwellings behind Sandy Bay Road, which is to the southeast, ranges from 250 to 1,400 feet from the brewery's outdoor area that we're talking about. Staff felt that these distances, combined with a 60-foot buffer and 9 p.m. noise ordinance, would help mitigate sound from the brewery site. Staff stated that the noise ordinance limits requires that any sound audible at 100 feet be discontinued after 9 p.m. The applicant's representative stated that there may be time during the week and certainly times over the weekend when there would be live music. He stated that this is not a concert venue for large bands, but certainly for small musical groups. Commissioners' discussion and dialogue with the applicant's representative centered on additional mitigation for the potential high decibel levels for the music. As a result, the applicant agreed in the meeting to an additional proffer to orient amplified music away from the Sandy Bay Road. We did have one neighbor from the 1607 development that spoke in favor of the application, commenting that the addition to the location of an aroma coffee house, the neighborhood would have a nearby place to even get a cup of coffee, which there's nothing down in that area. The location of the brewery is directly across from the start point of the Powhatan Creek Park Blueway. While the brewery would likely be a welcome stop for the Blue Way kayakers, daytime noise from the venue could interfere with park users' experience. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the application and acceptance of the voluntary proffers, subject to redirecting amplified noise away from Sandy Bay Road by a vote of 4, 1, and 1. And as you know, the applicant has included that in your proffer for that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Could I just ask a question, Ms. Poster, about the discussion related to the difference between the kind of ambient noise, the ambient music that would be there as a kind of background for the coffee house and brewery versus a concert? That's not really specified in the proffers, is
The
it?
coffee house and the brewery are at a separate location. The music that we were talking about was in that patio area, ambient patio. And obviously, the applicant's representative ventured to say that, in fact, they may have some kind of a musical event, but nothing like a large venue of that. So that was the discussion about how do you mitigate that ambient noise coming from that area, which is, 90 feet, 60 feet from that Sandy Road area.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you. Great
Thank you.
presentation. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public comment. And our first speaker, Mr. Vernon Getty. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Vernon Getty. It is my pleasure to be here representing the applicants. Also here are Connor Halfpenny and Melissa Trainum with the Frothy Moon team back there. This proposal is for the redevelopment and adaptive reuse of the two parcels that you've seen. They were formerly, as you all remember, Cook's Greenhouse and Garden Center. Cook's closed in 2018, and the property has sat vacant and deteriorating ever since. This shows buildings that are actually no longer here, but part of the Cook's operation. This is the building where the brewery and tap house will be, and outdoor areas right here. This shows the building that will be renovated. You can see the parking in front right now. This is looking toward Jamestown from that same area. You'll see all the impervious surface that will be converted to buffer. This is the existing patio and pavilion. There's an existing concrete pad where food trucks would provide service. So it is a microbrewery, tap room, coffee shop with outdoor seating. As Tori said, about half the building will be production area and half will be coffee shop, tap room, and retail area. There will be outdoor seating outside and under the roofed area. This will produce beers only for on-site sale and consumption. Small operation. Coffee will be provided by Aromas, which I'm sure you know from their location on Prince George Street. And local food trucks will provide the food service. You see just a couple things on the master plan. This entrance that you saw in the photograph is closed completely. This will be the new main entrance, and this will be a restricted entrance. And this whole area is, all the impervious is taken out and it's converted to a community character corridor buffer. The main parking area is here using the existing pad and potential overflow over here. John Hopke, a prominent local architect, has worked with Connor on sprucing up the building. Elevations are part of the proffers. We think this is an excellent adaptive reuse of this building and of the site. And Frothy Moon is committed to being a good neighbor. They've met with neighbors, understand concerns, and there is a set of proffers that covers these issues. There's a binding master plan, the community character corridor buffer I've mentioned. There is a significant reduction on this site of impervious cover, which is good for Powhatan Creek. The entrances are consolidated. there's a proffer limiting out a number of B1 uses, which really makes it pretty equivalent zoning to the LB zoning that's there now. We've restricted access from Sandy Bay Road to address a neighbor concern. You've seen the improvements that would be made to the existing building. There are limits on signage and lighting. And finally, based on the conversations about noise, amplified music would be directed away from Sandy Bay Road. And that music could be from a band or just from speakers playing background music. And as Frank mentioned, I mean, this is not a music venue or a concert venue. This is a brewery where people will be sitting and talking and with background music playing. Certainly there'll be special events, there'll be bands in the afternoons, but it's not a music venue by any stretch. We obviously agree with the staff report and Planning Commission and staff recommendations. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We think with the proffers, it won't have adverse impacts, and it's certainly a significant improvement to a vacant and deteriorating site on this key corridor in the county, and it supports a local startup business who chose to locate in James City County and was being courted by surrounding jurisdictions. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. We'd be glad to answer any questions and would urge you to approve the project.
Questions?
So, thank you. And I should mention that you and I did speak by phone.
Yes.
So thank you for that. I also met with, I've been out to Frothy Moon
Yes.
several times and appreciate Melissa and Connor having me out and answering questions as it went. We received a couple of phone calls today. The music, we've heard about the music, traffic, but there's been a business there
Yes.
prior. There's a
Exactly.
business next door that right now is operating differently online due to COVID, but still getting pickups, but at any point could also go back to pre-COVID when it was a retail business.
Right.
So, and then of course during Cook's, there was traffic there previously.
Absolutely.
Another issue that was brought forward was parking. So when you do, if there are special events, so to speak, how's the parking going to be? I know that there's going to be some shared parking, but there was a concern brought up that there would be parking along the road or in behind maybe. So on Sandy Bay. So I guess
Yeah.
are the owners willing to consider, that type of thing prior to planning any type of special events?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, if you drive down Sandy Bay, there's nowhere to park.
Right. That doesn't stop people
Yeah.
all the time though.
Well, true.
So,
Yeah.
but, okay.
I think there was also concern about the possibility they might go across to the creek.
Oh, yes, thank
parking
you.
area.
I had that, thank you. Yes, that there was some concern that there would be parking over where our park is.
Right.
So, if there's any signage or anything that could,
I'm sure they would be more than happy to work with the county on no parking signage or whatever's needed to address that issue.
yeah, not just for that, but for safety too. We
Right,
wouldn't want people,
understood.
that road can get quite busy.
Right.
So, okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
I may have to bring this up to staff too, and I was thinking the same thing as far as parking and this project, reusing the existing within the PSA and everything else is really what we're always looking for. How can we reuse these properties and make them vital again to the community? But the only thing I notice that we always end up, and it's probably a staff thing, but we always end up that if there's a lot of impervious cover, we pull it back to such a tight number that, like this project, if these properties, the two separate properties that'll be owned by possibly two different people, maybe sold again and all that, well, the overflow parking. Well, your overflow parking, I've changed my whole way I do business in this piece, but I've got to do overflow parking where originally we had all this impervious cover over there. that when Cooks was in there was parking everywhere. Everything was being parked on. And now we're closing in that area to a point where if you grow, which we hope you do, if you end up with this and you grow, we hope everything grows with you, but we hope it stays within that lot
Right.
and not out on the road. And that's why. So it
Understood.
worries me a little bit with this project that we're consolidating the amount of parking and a limited amount of parking on that lot itself, or the two lots, that may, as hopefully this company grows and becomes bigger as it moves along, the parking remains on those lots and doesn't have to go to that next door neighbor's lot that may not be in the future owned by the owners now. So I think we might be setting ourselves up for an issue down the road. I think we may have to look at having more parking on the property that we have and alleviating the overflow parking on the other piece. Now, if they park over there and it's a gentleman's agreement, yeah, you can come on over here. But one day it may not be a gentleman's agreement.
Right.
And I don't want to see any parking out on the road. I don't want to see any parking on the park.
Right.
I don't want to see any parking behind us on Sandy Bay. I want to see it all on the lot there.
Right.
And I know we've decided, as far as I understand, to condense that parking to a limited amount.
Right.
I think that ought to be looked at, that we may be restricting a growth of a business down the road. Maybe we have the parking that we have existing now and future parking designed, but have to come back to the planning and go, hey, this is for future parking. Right now, we're not going to do it, but it's future parking to be on this lot as this company may grow or may not. And then they come back to the planning director and say, look, I'd like to now add parking lot number 2. Instead of, having these issues that may concern some of our citizens.
Sure.
May concern our parks, may concern the neighbor next door, which has agreed to let them park there. I think we ought to maybe have a same size parking lot in there on the master plan that is set up for future parking. Wouldn't be done now.
Right.
But could possibly done in the future if the company grows. And that way we're not restricting the company on the amount of growth that they may end up.
Sure. I mean, I think now, there is a binding master plan, and the site has constraints, certainly. So if there was going to be any substantial growth or changes to this, we would be back before you in any event to amend the plan, and at that point could address parking on site.
Okay. I just want to make sure we don't,
Exactly.
put y'all in a box.
Right.
And not have a, well, in the future, if we do, we've got this, and it may be something that, I don't know, staff can work it out with you as you go through the planning stages and all that. This would be a site possibly for later down the road. Just a thought.
Mr. Getty, between you and Ms. Haynes, maybe I can get an answer to this particular question. That is, you proffered out a lot of uses in that property. Was it everything except basically what's being proposed here, or what else is left?
There are a few low-impact B1 uses still left, but not many. We really went through the ordinance, and anything that was not in LB or was an intensive use, we proffered out.
Is, just an example or two of what might be left?
I'll punt to Tori on that one.
Yeah, that's what I thought maybe. Between the two, I'd get the answer.
Someone might ask that.
Good.
So far, we counted 7 sort of new by right uses that would be available on 259 specifically, and then in a way would be restricted on the other side from 1826. But the 7 uses added to the 259 side are catering and meal preparation larger than 5,000 square feet, farmers markets, food trucks, museums, parking lots as a primary use, retail food stores larger than 5,000 square feet, and small-scale alcohol production, the brewery itself.
So basically things that are really pretty compatible with the idea of what's going in here right now. I'm really just thinking about, the possibility that decisions made down the line that, well, we're not going to continue operation, or we need to move to a different location. What can that site be used for as a result of what we've done here? For most other things, they would be back here to ask for permission to restore those rights, I guess. Is that right?
Right, so
Yeah.
any redevelopment, if they keep within the proffered uses, would still be a master plan amendment at a minimum.
Right.
And then likely a proffer amendment if they had a whole new redevelopment proposal.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Our next, I did open up public comment, didn't I? I thought I did. Okay, I want to make sure I gavelled it in. David Tidwell. Okay. All right. Brad Osmer. Hope I pronounced that properly.
My name's Brad Osmer, and I live at 204 Bergen Circle, and my wife owns one of the properties back on Sandy Bay, and our son lives back there. You had brought up the parking on, I think Ms. Larson and Mr. Hipple, y'all both talked about the parking. And Sandy Bay Road it's barely big enough for one vehicle to come down at a time. I mean, it can do two-way traffic. But I do have a concern that people might be trying to park back there. And I noticed on one of the slides, it said that that there was limited access off from Sandy Bay Road. And I was just, I didn't know what that meant, because I don't see any vehicular traffic that way right now. So I was hoping maybe they could speak to that. What exactly does that mean? And maybe even the county might be able to put some, if they go forward with this, some no parking signs on Sandy Bay. Just a few, just to, if anyone, because like you say, that park across the street, I'm sure people will be parking over there and walking across Jamestown, and it can get really busy. But that's some of the comments I have.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate it. We'll look into that.
There is no way to get there, so, and it would be quite a hike to come around, but we will definitely, we can talk to staff about if there is approval about seeing what we can do about no parking.
Okay.
Making sure.
All right. Thank you.
Brandon. Brandon here? Osmore? You decline? Okay. And Gabriel? Okay, what's your last name? I don't want to.
Mercado.
Okay, thank you. I knew I'd mess it.
It's okay. I actually live there with Brandon Osmer.
Okay.
Right, we're the closest neighbors to the brewery, and I just wanted to voice my concerns on mainly the noise. I know they said they were mentioning to put up some blockage, but earlier today, we actually tested it out, pointing a speaker towards their buildings like they plan on it, and I could still hear everything clearly. I could even hear conversation between two people. So even if they don't plan on having loud music throughout the day, I'm very concerned about the rowdy crowds that will, I feel like it's going to be a popular place. And I feel like it's going to definitely put a daily stress to our environment for our home. I could also hear it within our house. So even if we aren't trying to enjoy our outdoor area, it would still be, very concerning. I have a young daughter, and I am currently pregnant as well, so I really am stressed, and I don't want to have this be a daily stress for our lives. Another concern is, anywhere else I've seen breweries, they're nowhere near close to people where they live, and I'm concerned with a higher percentage of people drinking and driving closer to our area, which I am very concerned for the safety of me and my family. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you coming out. All right, there's no more public comment, so I'll go ahead and close that public hearing and look to the board for discussion and or a motion.
Did I just get a confirmation of what kind of buffer was going to be back there between that area and the residential area?
Board?
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, so there is existing vegetation at the rear of the property. The standard requirement would be a 35-foot, we call it a transitional landscape buffer. So any existing vegetation, we need it to stay, or if if it would happen to have already been cleared, we would require at least 35 feet worth of plantings to be put in.
To be in addition to?
Yeah, so there is some existing vegetation back there. The details of what would be required we'll handle at the site plan stage when we better understand the existing conditions of that vegetation. But the master plan shows up to 60 feet, or about a 60-foot average above the 35-foot requirement.
Thank you very much.
Now, the comment on limited access, can you?
Sure. So after going into the Planning Commission meeting, there were some resident concerns about access from Sandy Bay Road. Now, the master plan has always depicted the entrances as you've seen off of Jamestown. There's never been any sort of access, whether for employees or for the public, off of Sandy Bay. So even if they did want to add it, again, that would be a legislative action just from the master plan standpoint. But they did add the additional proffer that there will be no entrances from Sandy Bay directly. Now, Sandy Bay is a tight, narrow road, and I have been back there. So if someone were to be confused and drive down there and park, there still would be no advantageous way to get up to the site.
It's closed off now, but there's one little old entrance that was in there, but that's all blocked off. But there will be no access from Sandy Bay
There will be
into
no
this.
entrance
Okay.
built or otherwise improved to the rear of that property, and in fact, we would need it to be vegetated if it's not already vegetated.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Just, could you speak again, Ms. Haynes, just a little bit about the efforts to avoid noise pollution?
Sure.
I guess I'm particularly asking about the question of how, what the limitations would be in terms of the neighbors on Sandy Bay hearing the noise under both the normal circumstances and even the occasional.
Okay, so currently, that site is subject to a part of the noise ordinance that restricts noise after 9 p.m., and it defines it as plainly audible at 100 feet. Beyond that, there is nothing else in the noise ordinance, so any business that went in today just has to adhere to the 9 p.m. rule. With this application, the proffer further restricts the direction of that amplified noise, so as speakers go in, if there's some sort of sound system, any of the sound orientation would have to be directed away from Sandy Bay to help filter out some of the noise that might go in reverse.
So if that site turned once again into a garden center, which involved things like perhaps small machinery operating to move pavers, things like that around the properties, customers would be coming in front and back, there wouldn't be any noise limitation on that?
No, not
during
within,
normal?
not directly during the day.
Right.
The noise ordinance doesn't really have any limitations, not just here, but in any location in the county. 9 p.m. is generally the earliest that the noise ordinance dictates, and it, depending on the circumstances, it goes up to midnight. But in this location, it's solidly 9 p.m. plus the proffered amplified noise direction.
Mr. Getty, can I pull you back up one more time? And Liz, this may be a question for you as well. Now, there's really, and I've been down the road there, but there's really on Sandy Bay, there's really nowhere to park without dropping into a ditch or blocking most of the road. But if we found down the road that somebody were to park there and a neighbor complained about someone parking there, is there, I know that not being that's a state road, so we can't, without VDOT, put signs up, but would there be a way to work with the applicant as far as, hey, let's have a couple of no parking signs just to make sure that no one.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys would give them permission to put them up, I'm sure they'd be happy to.
Okay, just want to make sure for the neighbors that, may say, all of a sudden this one vehicle tries to park there, a dozen, that we can, maybe work with the owner to try to work a way to put some signs up to help the neighbors and make sure they can get in and out of their driveway, because that is a
Absolutely.
tight road down
Yeah,
through there.
no, absolutely.
Okay,
As I said,
thank
they're committed to being good neighbors.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to follow up with, first of all, I think this is an excellent use of that space. As I've said, I've met with both Melissa and Connor. They are both extremely hardworking. They've been in this process a long time. I really appreciate that. I am concerned about the parking, but I don't want the music to get pushed to the side either.
Right.
I do think that there's other uses. I've been very concerned over the past, since this has been sitting empty, about what could possibly go there. Believe it or not, I think it would be a much, not believe it or not, forget I said that, it would be a much worse use of that plot of land, and it would bring other things that I don't think the neighbors would want to be looking at or dealing with. But I want to make sure that they are heard and that they are concerned about the music. And 9 o'clock, that seems like, but 9 o'clock when you have little kids or you're trying to live your life can be hard too. So, we're going to approve it. If we do, that gives them the ability. But I would ask that they try very hard to be good neighbors. And if there's not a reason to take the music to 9 o'clock, you cut it off at 7:30, or once we have a vote in favor or against, then that it is what it is. But it is very important, I think, because on the other hand, we don't want James City County Police having to be called out to be noise police all the time either, which tends to happen if there's a noise issue. So just the importance of being a good neighbor, and with every conversation that I've had with both Melissa and Connor, I have no reason to not believe that would not be the case. But I just want to make sure that's reiterated.
Understood fully, and they're committed to being good neighbors. And I think the way they've conducted themselves so far shows that.
Absolutely. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, who wants to lead off with conversation or discussion, or do we have any? And
I'll move the motion, and then if there's more discussion.
I want to bring, I'm going to mimic basically what you were saying as well. We're always looking for a good neighbor in James City County. We're always looking for infill development, and that sort of thing on the parcels we have, so we don't have to take down woods and that sort of thing and other parcels. And it's been an eyesore for a little while now at that area. And just like Ms. Larson was saying, you worry about, what could go in there. A garage could go in there, and mechanics could be working all the time on there on cars and that sort of thing. A lot of traffic, a lot of cars out there. I think this is a very good use of this property. I think it's going to work very well. I wish them a lot of success. I'm glad they picked James City County to have their business, and we're always looking for good, strong business to come in our community and take parcels of land that haven't been used in a while to reuse it and put it in place and make something. And as you can see with the master plan, it's going to be a beautiful site when it's done. So it's going to look so much better as traffic is coming in from the ferry and that sort of thing into James City County. And it's going to allow the entire town to, and plus there's nothing much out that way. So it does help with a coffee shop and that sort of thing out there, and a gift shop. So I wish you all the success, and I think it'll be a very good use of this land. Any other?
I'll just say that, again, the property is zoned for business, and we have to expect that there's going to be some impact of a business operation, regardless of how benign it might be. This is probably about as benign as you can get, given the nature of the surrounding properties and so forth. It has been a parcel that's been empty for a long time and looks pretty bad. And it'll be nice to see something more attractive established there. And the fact that so many potential uses are proffered out here, I think is a protection against a more intrusive kind of operation in the area that might really have a more profound impact on adjacent property owners. So I think it's worth supporting.
Well, as a supporter of economic development in the James City County, I'm happy to support this, and I wish you all the luck and best wishes out there for success. I'm looking forward to coming out and visiting.
Larson, would you like to bring a motion forward?
I'll move the motion.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would just, I'll wait
Yeah, go
until,
ahead.
that's okay. I'll wait until see the outcome of the vote.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I would just ask that if there are things in place with a new business, that if any help that we might be able to give to the owners, that we continue to do so. Thank you.
All right, number 2, SUP-21-0014, Busch Gardens Entertainment Event Facility. Ms. Costello. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Mr. Anthony Loubier of VHB has applied on behalf of SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment for a special use permit to allow for the construction of an approximately 32,500 square foot building to be used partly as an entertainment event building and partly as a warehouse storage facility. The Busch Gardens Williamsburg site, located at 7851 Pocahontas Trail, is zoned M1 Limited Business Industrial and is designated Limited Industry on the adopted comprehensive plan. A special use permit is required because the proposed structure exceeds 10,000 square feet. The event building will be located towards the rear of the property where the nursery is currently located. The area is screened by mature trees and a large tall wooden fence. The facility will not be visible from the Busch Service Road. Approximately 43% of the building space will be used for special entertainment events, and the remaining space will be used for storage. All materials and storage will be contained in the building, as there is no outdoor storage proposed. Staff has reviewed this application and finds it to be consistent with the zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, and adjacent development. On July 7th, 2021, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve this application subject to the conditions in the resolution presented tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is also present tonight. Thank you.
Questions?
I just had a question about, now, as I understand it, we're talking about use that's split between storage that's needed and a place where it sounds like a show would be
Like a
presented.
special event, so if they did something inside the building for Hallowed Scream, or maybe for Christmas Town, but it'll all be contained within the dwelling, or in the building.
So the question I have really relates to the elevations that we saw, the renderings of what this building would look like, and it struck me that it was likely not to be quite as plain and simple as it appears in the drawings. Am I correct that what we're looking at here really is something that's just kind of giving a general idea of the size and the scale?
The square footage is roughly 32,000, and the height is approximately 23 feet, and it'll be one story. As to the specifics of the building, the applicant can probably address that.
They won't tell me, but I'll ask them anyway.
That's a secret. Any other questions?
I'll see it on some website someplace.
Yeah, secretfans.com.
Right. Any questions? All right. So, Mr. Polster, welcome again.
The staff report and the presentation made at the Planning Commission meeting was straightforward, and the applicant had nothing to add to the proposal. Commissioners had no questions for the staff or applicant, and there was no discussion on the proposed SUP. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of this application to the board with a vote of 6-0. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Sorry, I don't know what.
Yeah, I was gonna, go ahead, Don.
I don't know anything either.
Thank you.
No, Bragg already tipped his hand on that.
All right, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Do you have any, no speaker cards? Would the applicant like to speak on any? You know what the questions are gonna be. How you doing, Ms. Cheeley?
Good. My name's Susie Cheeley. I'm the Vice President of Design and Engineering at Busch Gardens and Water Country. So if you guys have any questions for me.
Yeah, I had one.
Okay. I know Terry was saying, we'll have events there. The types of events that we typically have are like Hallow Scream, which is going on right now, Food and Wine event that we have in the spring, and Christmas Town, and it seems like we're always adding more. So
So I guess I'm wondering, is the building going to look like it shows in the renderings, and then maybe it's changed by virtue of exterior decoration for different kinds of events, or what?
It very well could be. I don't know if you guys have been to Christmas Town. You've seen the front of the Wilcomen House where it looks like a cookie factory type thing. We do things with projection imagery, and there's all kinds of ways now to dress things up a little bit. So which is why we need the warehouse side of it, because it just seems like with more and more events, there's more stuff that we have to find storage for and things like that. So we're always trying new and different things.
Right. Well, I just know you always do try to present things in a very attractive and appealing way,
Correct.
and so I was kind of curious as to what the renderings look like a warehouse, right? So,
Right, right. The basic is a metal building, but the expectation is that at least at the front entrance, when the guests would come in, it would be dressed up.
So the basic message to me is you're just going to have to wait till it opens
Wait
and
and
come see
see.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the theming department will take care of that.
Right.
That's right. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Susan.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Anybody
All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll look for the board for decision or discussion on
Chairman,
that.
I'd move approval. It seems to me that this is an issue in which there really are no major concerns out there. We're not dealing with environmental issues or possible archaeological issues or anything of that nature. And I understand fully the need to have some additional space for more programming and more storage. So,
Thank you. Roll call, sir.
Mr. McGlinnan.
aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Sadler.
Aye.
Mr. Hippel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, next, number 3, SUP-21-0015, Crosswalk Community Church, Daycare, and School.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a statement real
Yes,
quick,
ma'am.
please. Just wanted to, in the interest of transparency, let everyone know my grandchildren attend Greenwood Christian Academy. And speaking with the county attorney's office, he saw no reason for any conflict at all. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Mr. Caleb Hurst of Draper Aid and Associates has applied on behalf of Crosswalk Community Church and Greenwood Christian Academy for a special use permit to allow the operation of a child daycare center and school, the installation of 2 temporary classroom trailers, the installation of 1 permanent modular building for school use, and a continued operation of a place of public assembly at 5100 John Tyler Highway. The property is zoned R1, limited residential, is designated low-density residential in the comprehensive plan, and is located inside the primary service area. Surrounding development includes the Williamsburg Crossing Shopping Center and the Jamestown Farms and Indigo Park subdivisions. The property has 2 previous SUPs for child daycare center and school use. In 2002, SUP 0030-2001 was approved to allow a preschool with a maximum capacity of 200 students within the existing church building. And in 2008, SUP 0009-2008 was approved to amend SUP 0030-2001 to allow the operation of an elementary school until June 30th, 2010, in addition to the preschool. For the current proposal, the applicant anticipates using the temporary classroom trailers for elementary school use for the 2021-2022 school year, and using the permanent school building for preschool use starting in the 2022-2023 school year. Staff is recommending conditions intended to mitigate the impacts of the use and replace the conditions of SUP 009-2008. With the conditions, the child daycare center and school uses on the property would be limited to a total enrollment capacity of 200 students, pre-K through 8th grade, with hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The temporary classroom trailers would be required to be removed from the property by September 1st, 2022. Additional conditions are proposed regarding landscaping, exterior lighting, outdoor noise, and signage. Finally, the proposed conditions would allow the continued operation of the church as a place of public assembly. At its August 4th, 2021 regular meeting, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the SUP to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Staff finds this proposal to be compatible with surrounding development and consistent with the 2035 Comprehensive Plan and zoning ordinance. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve of this application, subject to the proposed conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time, and the applicant team is also available. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Job, none at this time. All right.
Staff could bring up the master plan, please. If the concerns that were expressed, and it might help to understand by having the voice, the concerns of the commissioners by having the master plan up here. And the first concern were the two temporary buildings in the upper left-hand side that are in orange. Those trailers in the light orange area. The issue was the amount of buffering and vegetation between the housing development to the rear of there. And we were told that it's a 35-foot, and there is a permanent vinyl fence that exists there already that also is on the other two sides of the property line. The second concern was the permanent modular building, and that it would be of good quality and be serviceable for a number of years. Staff stated that the building must meet all aspects of the building code and would be subject to remediation if it fell below the state disrepair, in a state of disrepair. What we found of interest was that the SUP request for the temporary daycare and kindergarten in the permanent modular building was driven by an increased enrollment over the last year, which we thought was kind of remarkable given the COVID piece. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the special use permit request to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Be happy to answer any questions. Questions? Thank you.
I'm just going to ask, you didn't hear from any neighbors or?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Mark Thornburn? Am I pronouncing that correctly? It seems like I'm not getting any of them right.
Hi, my name is Mark Thornblom.
Thank you.
I'm representing Greenwood Christian Academy and the applicant tonight. I'm on the school board, which when you have 3 kids that go to school, by default, you get tagged into those things. So I'm doing my best to represent the school through this project, kind of act as the liaison for the school, working with the church, and joining me tonight is Mrs. Tara Sagman. She is the lead of our preschool and basically serves as our bookkeeper at the school and kind of the director, if you will, of all of our preschool operations. Also, Ryan Cantu from Wilmont Modular Structures is here to address any concerns about the building itself. And then also Mr. Caleb Hurst from Drayden Aiden Associates, who's serving as our engineers and architects on this building. We're very excited about the growth that Greenwood Christian Academy has seen over the last few years. In a master planning session, we plan to be here in 2 or 3 years from now, but the COVID pandemic actually saw an amazingly increased number of students in demand for children to be in school. Last year, we were very fortunate. We did not miss a single day of school last year throughout the pandemic, and we're on a good track this year. Things are a little bit different. We're definitely working through some challenges right now, but we're planning to have as successful a year this year as we did last year. One thing that we saw with the number of students that were coming, in most cases it was our child needs to be in school because both parents work full time, and we can't have our first grader, for instance, at home. So we had a lot of increased attendance because of that, but the retention of those students coming into this year most people said, we came to Greenwood for school, but now we're staying because the quality of the education was so good, the staff was so good, the experience was so good. So we're seeing another meteoric rise in demand. And preschool is one area that we see the highest demand every year is for preschool. So we almost can't make our preschool and daycare center big enough to accommodate the need. So, but this project is going to put us in a very good place. It's going to offer us 10 or 11 classrooms that'll serve 2-year-olds through either 5 or 6 years old, depending on how it works out. And then our existing space, which is a leased building over across the highway in the shopping center there, that will become our elementary and middle school exclusive location there. So we'll have a nice split between what a lot of people would consider early childhood development, right, and then elementary, middle school. And so that's where we stand with our project right now. I know there were a few concerns from the Planning Commission over the building, so we can go ahead and Mr. Cantu can come up and brief some slides, or if you just want to go into questions, we can just work it that way, whatever you prefer.
Let's bring Mr. Cantu in
Sure.
and look at those, and then we'll hold the questions after we see this. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for having us here. I appreciate that. So I guess file should be coming up here.
Yep.
So first of all, I want to say thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I get to do what I love to do, which is talk about what we do. The examples I provided here that you all are looking at, this is a project I recently completed in Washington, D.C. For Harsh Elementary School, which is in the District of Columbia. This first page here is just the picture of the existing school structure on the property. If we go to the next slide. Oh, okay, technology.
That's right.
Okay, so the second slide here, this is an overview of the property, of the building that we just put in. It's about 5,000 square feet. The existing elevations is a smart panel finish with a white rubber roof. I'm not too sure of the level of understanding of modular construction as it compares to site-built, traditional stick-built. In all intents and purposes, these buildings are built using the same materials. They're fabricated in a controlled environment. They're designed to withstand the rigors of coming down the highway. In this case, this building was put together with the use of a crane. The site actually falls about 12 feet. It's got an extensive concrete foundation system. In this particular area in the city, as you can understand, an urban environment, very difficult to get around the area, roadways, pathways to get in. These buildings are designed to be maneuvered and placed as such. On this particular project, they implemented metal catwalks and walkways with metal canopy systems. You'll also see exterior lighting. They also put extensive security systems because in an urban environment, you can understand there's potential likelihood for theft, intrusions. They also put in metal screens over the windows, which is a requirement in this particular area. This is another picture of the exterior right rear of the property. You can see the elevations change pretty dramatically. And behind this is actually the skirting of this structure. Most properties and the property we're looking at putting the permanent structure on doesn't slope this great. It's pretty flat and level. But this is a pretty extreme circumstance. All skirted, the same material, the likeness, the color was all selected by 2 different architects. We had an architect involved, and the owner in DGS in district had an architect as well that was involved in the selection. What's important in this picture is here, as you can see the rear elevation, the mechanical units are on the rear of the property, which don't face the front, which is going to be similar, and I'll show another slide that will represent how we want to orient the mechanical units similarly on their project. Electrical components here, which is the disconnect panels that feed all the, this is, I believe, 10 modules in this project, about 5,000 square feet in space. Another picture showing the tight tolerances on the property line. We used every inch of available space to put these buildings, these modules in place, and this building does not have a fire suppression system. It was not required. It met all the code requirements. And to talk to an earlier comment that was made about the IBC code and building requirements, the structure that we're proposing will meet all those code requirements as well. Another picture of an elevated catwalk with a canopy system. These were all, again, selected by the architect. I know that what Greenwood wants to pick is a little bit different than this because of the nature of where it's going to be going and the aesthetic that they want to have perceived. You can see the inside of the building. This is one classroom. It's kind of hard to tell from here, but with modular, the gypsum wall panels come in 4-foot sheets. And so there's going to be a typical batten strip, which is industry standard for its use. It's got T-grid acoustical ceiling tiles within it. All the low voltages run within the walls. It has an audio-visual system so the kids can learn to the method, the programming that the school wants.
Could I just ask you a question about the size of this room versus what's proposed? I think the building that you're talking about at Greenwood would be just under 500 square feet for a classroom?
Yes, sir.
And is this comparable to that?
It's comparable, okay. Yes, sir. And I could provide the actual plans for these to show you exact, but what we're doing is designing towards the programming for their classroom and their children. I believe it's 35 square feet per child is what we're aiming for. Another picture of the hallway, which is going to also be very similar to what Greenwood is selecting to do. This is an LVT flooring, which is all site installed. All the cove base comes off when it's coming down the road, and we apply it and put it on, install it when it gets in the field. Same, you can see the batten strips along the gypsum wallboard here, acoustical T-grid ceilings, and recessed lighting. It's a rudimentary concept in comparison to some of the other renderings we saw. We're not that far along in design yet. Primarily, I knew there were some questions that came up about the material selections that we have, and hopefully these pictures that we've shared will help show that what we're going to be putting in here is going to be high quality, in all intents and purposes can last 30 years plus as long as it's maintained properly. Have no issues. The company that I work for has been in business for over 32 years. We support the Mid-Atlantic states, and we have a tremendous lease fleet that we rent and typically send out on multiple job sites throughout the year, 365 days a year. We're always putting out temporary buildings. This is designed different than what a quote-unquote trailer to be perceived would be. And I know in everyone's minds there's a typical difference between what a trailer is and a modular building. These are high-performing structures to meet energy codes, between the lighting, the insulation, the material components of the cement board on the outside. And this just rough front elevation that you're looking at here is just very rudimentary. Of course, it's two-dimensional, so you don't see the relief and what it would look like as three-dimensional. We haven't gotten that far. We will be putting together full-color renderings once we get to the next stage and we get feedback as to what, if there's an architectural requirement for the facades for the jurisdiction here. So I guess maybe I'll open back up to the board to answer any questions you have about what we're providing.
I know in James City County, we don't call them trailers anymore. They're learning cottages.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So is this roughly the same size then as the one that you were showing us in
This is
Washington?
probably twice the
5,000?
size building as what you were looking at in the district, the project I showed earlier.
I'm sorry, it's the same size building?
No, it's double the size.
Double the
This one
size.
here is about 2 times the size.
I see.
The one you were looking at before is actually 10 modules, but they're smaller. They're 45-foot length, and they're offset, so we could make sure that we met within the jurisdiction's requirements for the site plan, so it didn't have to have fire suppression. So there's an architect involved in that with the civil engineer as well. I know there was also, to add a comment about the covered front entrance. I know this one doesn't really show that detail. So I had put together another picture of a project I completed in Maryland, and this is for Honey Go Animal Hospital, which is similar to the elevation change. It dropped about 12 feet, and this project here had a stem wall concrete foundation underneath of it that could have been a basement. But if you put a basement, you had to put fire suppression in, so we didn't do that. Did it as a crawl. This actually houses a full animal hospital with a surgeon in it, and this right here, the front covered porch, has an at-grade entrance from this particular property, but you can see the design similarities to what Greenwood is aiming to do for their covered entryway. So it will break up that linear feel of being so straight and be a little bit more traditional construction, colonial style. Maybe you could put shingles on the roof. There's always material selections that could be selected. It just depends on what you want. And also the exterior facade on this one has a high rib steel. And again, in Maryland, this particular site close to the highway lent better to have a more industrial feel based on its location. And so with the smart panel, you can color the exterior trim, the panels, whatever color, but that would match the brick structure that's in front of it, the permanent building.
So will there be fire suppression in the building in this case?
No, sir. No. Not proposed. It actually meets the code requirements for space and use with egress for ADA compliance. It would not require it.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. Alan Parrish?
Hi, good evening.
Evening.
My name is Alan Parrish. I live at 105 Leon Drive and live right behind the rear of the church property. And I guess my concern is I've looked at the master plan, and right now there's not a lot of vegetation anyway. In fact, out of my bedroom, which is on the far side of my house, I can see the trailer door, and there's nothing between me and that door. So I can't see how sound is going to be controlled, noise is going to be controlled in its current state. And it looks like the master plan, there's a 4-foot vinyl fence in the plan, which is probably pretty good for, containing children, but I don't think it's going to do anything for noise mitigation at all. I mean, there's nothing there. It looks like on the property also, they've got plans for looks like a wooden fence around the playground, and I think it's 6 foot high. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell on the plan, but that's certainly going to help. But as far as this vinyl fence being 4 foot tall, I don't think that's going to do anything for sound mitigation, noise mitigation. And I guess I'm asking you to take a look at that and then see if maybe you could raise that height a little bit, couple feet. They would do a better job. Right now, I just don't think it would, when they decide to put it in.
Right.
So that's my concern.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
suggesting that the vinyl fence be raised to 6 foot?
Yeah, I just don't think, 4, like I said, is good for keeping people in, keeping students in, but as far as any kind of noise mitigation, it's just not going to, when you can see a person, that's not, that the noise is not going to be stopped. So, yeah, my suggestion would be maybe another 2 feet.
Okay. We'll look into that. Thank you. All right, Marshall Sheets.
Members of the board, thanks for letting me speak. My name is Marshall Sheets. I live at 107 Leon Drive. So I live the contiguous property right behind the church, Crosswalk Church, and right next to Allen Parish. And actually have a few concerns, but I want to read a letter. I have another neighbor not on Leon Drive and not contiguous to Crosswalk Church that expressed some concerns in a letter that I have here that I'd like to read, and then I'll express some of my concerns as well regarding the school project. So this is from Peter and Francis Dirks at 110 Vaden Drive, also in Indigo Park neighborhood. Attention James City Board of Supervisors, James City County, Virginia. We are residents of Indigo Park subdivision of James City County, an area that is zoned R1 and is adjacent to the property on which Crosswalk Baptist Church is located. We are confused as to the purpose of tonight's public hearing concerning a request to allow 2 temporary trailers on the property of the church in order to house 200 children in a private school run jointly by Crosswalk and Greenwood Academy. The trailers have been placed in the property, so obviously permission has been granted. When and by whom? These trailers appear to be right on the property line of residential homes, and the use of the buildings to house school children would certainly interfere with their rights to a peaceful R1 environment. We are both educators and applaud quality education for all children. We can only wonder what would happen if plans for a public school would encroach on the quality of a neighborhood in such a manner. Again, we ask, why did this happen with so little input from the people affected? Sincerely, Peter and Francis Dirks. So I share some concerns that Francis and Peter have, but I think regarding the project, my primary concerns are traffic concerns with the extra load on John Tyler Highway. So we, Indigo Park neighborhood, there's some entrances onto 199 from different roads. Stanley and Dewar is mainly the road that we use. And we've lived in this property, 107 Leon, for 3 years, and I've just noticed over the past 3 years, it's become increasingly difficult to exit Dewar onto 199, especially making left-hand turns towards 199. So that's a little bit of concern for me too. There's the fire department. Station 3 is right across the street, and so we have traffic from that from time to time. Another concern is from 199 down to Stanley Drive. It goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And I've noticed that's been troublesome, actually, for a lot of traffic coming from those 4 lanes down to the 2. And especially right at Crosswalk Church, that second lane is extended right to their entrance, which is great because then you have people who are going to Crosswalk and turn in there. But a lot of times you're going down, heading, I think it's south on John Tyler, and cars are merging, and it gets really messy right there. And the speed limit's 35, but a lot of people don't go 35 down that stretch of road. In fact, I was going to make a suggestion about, as far as the school zone, when the school does go in, about the possibility of the signs that go up in a lot of school zones requiring the speed limit goes down, sometimes to 25 or 35 with a flashing light on the speed limit sign, indicating when the students are entering the school and when they're leaving the premises. So I was going to make that suggestion. Another concern of mine is what Alan was stating, is how the church and the school plan on mitigating the sound from the possibility of 200 students on the premises. The existing vinyl fence that's on the property line is very short picket vinyl fence with spaces in between the pickets. And it's actually falling apart and doesn't cover the entire property line. So I have some concern as well about liability with students, possibly wandering across. I know they've talked about in the master plan putting a fence up, and so I'm hoping they weren't planning on using the existing fence and putting in something a little bit more substantial. Another concern I had, I only have a few seconds left here, but is how quickly this project seems to have gone through the process. I received a written notification 1 week before the August 4th meeting, and I was unable to attend because I was out of town for that week. And my neighbor, Megan Brewer, who lives on 103 Leon Drive, said, I talked to her today, she said she did not receive written notification of that first meeting. And she didn't know about this meeting either. But I know there's, it's on the internet, it's on the website of the James City County, so. Yeah, I think those are my primary concerns. I did put in a public records request for the number of vehicle crashes may I continue or should I stop?
Done, but if you got just real quick.
It just shows I was looking to see how many vehicle crashes there were from 2017 to 2021, from 199 to Hickory Signpost Road on John Tyler. And there was in 2017 was 14 crashes, 2018, 18 crashes, 2019, COVID, only 9 crashes, 2020, 9 crashes. But this year we're already up to 12 crashes, and we're not at the end of the year. So the amount of traffic does concern me.
May I ask a quick question, please? Did anyone reach out to you from Greenwood or from the church to talk to you about?
I spoke with their landscape guy, Josh. I don't know his last name. But
I meant, did the head of the school or Mark Morrow reach out to you to talk to you about?
Not directly, no.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
The only notification I have is the letter from the county regarding the August 4th meeting.
Thank you. All right, that was our last speaker, so I'll go ahead and close out public comment and look for the board. I know that, John, can you come back up and talk about the fence issue? Will that fence that everyone's concerned about be a 6-foot tall fence, or?
With the proposed conditions, we will not be requiring a fence. Certainly, if the applicant would like to provide that as part of their screening, I think that would definitely be welcome from a staff side.
I'll bring the applicant up to ask if that would be something that would be considered for the neighbors, a 6-foot fence in order to, take that noise.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We discussed that in length, and we believe not only from a noise perspective, but from a security perspective of our children. First of all, none of our children can wander out, and then no strangers can wander in.
Right.
We definitely believe a 6-foot fence around that area minimum. We even talked about an 8-foot fence. So we certainly are discussing that, and we are willing to do that, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think our codes will only allow 6 foot. We can't go up to 8, correct?
6 foot it is.
Am I right, guys? I think we're limited to
the
a 6 foot.
The 6 foot requirement is what you install without having it inspected, essentially. There are no building requirements for
Okay.
6 feet.
Okay, good, then 6 foot. And that's what the neighbors were asking, if we can get a couple more feet on the 4 foot to make it 6. So if y'all are in agreements with that, that would take care of one of those.
But I would just like to make sure that is a proffer, that it is
Yes.
stated in the resolution.
Don, could that be, or Paul, could that be a proffer to the,
So this is an SUP, so the county can stipulate the condition. So certainly through your action tonight, you could amend the resolution to add that in as a condition of your vote. Yes, sir.
While you're already up here, what's the total enrollment at Greenwood this year?
I believe, I'll say 160, but plus or minus 5, probably.
Okay, and so when the,
Okay. yeah.
okay, so if this gets approved, so you're going to be putting the older kids over at the older facility across the street where the shopping center is, correct?
Yes, when the project is complete,
Okay.
the new building will be 2-year-old to 5 or 6. So it'll either end at pre-K 4 or end at kindergarten, and then first grade through the remainder of our offerings, which right now we offer up till 8th grade.
So you're not going to have the entire enrollment over at that?
No, ma'am. It'll
Okay.
just be the preschool, 2-year-olds through 5 or 6.
And do the kids already have recess and playground time out there currently?
They are out there occasionally.
Do you
yes.
hear complaints from anybody about the kids playing?
I have not personally fielded any complaints,
you,
but I'm not the
Ms.
person that
Adams?
would get it.
Okay, so I do know that they play out there currently. Okay, I just.
And we have conditions on noise, like there will be no
Right.
outdoor bell is one of our conditions, and we've agreed to all the conditions so far that have been put towards us. The fence, of course, we're willing to do that. And it'll be a solid fence, it will not be a picket fence,
Right.
it'll be solid.
okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Sure. Well,
Any
Can
other
I,
questions?
can I ask a question?
Yes,
I want to make sure I understand clearly that the temporary buildings for the one school year, and then when we transition over to the permanent building, for this next school year in the temporary buildings, is that going to be just the preschool children, and how many will be physically in those two temporary buildings?
So the temporary modulars that are going in for this school year are going to house our older grades. I believe that's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Right now, that comprises about 29 students and 4 teachers. Is that? 29. Okay.
Okay, so we were talking about 29 students is what the load will be this next year in those two temporary buildings.
For the 21, 22 school year,
22,
yes.
yeah, okay. Then the following year, when you go to the permanent building will be all of your pre-K up through maybe first grade up to about first grade?
It would not be any more than kindergarten.
Okay, pre-K up to kindergarten. And how many total students is that going to be in the permanent building?
With the way that we're doing the square footage at 35 feet square foot per child, that puts us at about 14 or 15 per classrooms. That's 10 or 11. So between 150 and 165 would be the total maximum, allowed by the square footage alone.
Okay.
But I think it would be considerably less than that. We try to keep our classrooms, as small as possible.
The reason I ask this is because what I'm trying to get back to is the number of students that are on that side of the road with the church as opposed to across the street, and what kind of traffic you have with parents dropping off and picking up. In the past, I know you've had pretty good number over there, and I'll ask a question later of staff, but I just wanted to know from your perspective, is there going to be is it in your mind pretty much consistent with what's happened in the past as to the number of parents dropping off and picking up over behind the church?
I don't think I'm really the expert to speak on the traffic. I do know, as a parent, they have the traffic flow controlled very well for the pickup and the drop off. And being that the new building is going to be towards the back of the property, there's lots of runway, if you will, for cars to come in and be on the property, on the driveway there, and not extending. I don't see a scenario where cars would be sticking out on John Tyler Highway because they're waiting in line to get their car, because there's a long driveway to the back of the property, and then there's another long driveway, kind of like a turnabout, if you will, that goes around the back to the parking lot there. So I do not foresee that being an issue once cars are pulled into the property. I hope that addresses your question.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll ask anything else of staff later.
How many kids are currently at the Kingsway campus? 29 now, okay. That's with the older grades?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and close the public comment. And now look to staff. John, can you come on back up? Because I think there was a few questions. I know, Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because there wasn't a whole lot of discussion in the staff report on it, but given the fact that we have had special use permits for that side of the road in the past, given the number of students and the number of parents dropping off and picking up, is there any concern that we will have a significant increase, or it will be pretty much the same as it has been in the past?
Staff's analysis expects it to be similar to the previous use. The conditions will continue that 200 maximum students on a property, and given the age range allowed, that will be before when students are driving themselves, so mostly pick up and drop off traffic. So we expect that to be a similar impact compared to the existing SUP.
And we have not had any significant problems with that previously then?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one that, it was brought up, and it was a good one. School zone signs. I know normally we have it for all our schools, and we do have it for the private school on, Montessori. They have a zone in there. Is that something that, nothing we can answer today, but that's something we can look into with, Rossi and that sort of thing, and see if maybe that's an area there that we slow traffic down enough to go to a 25 in a certain area while the school is coming in and going out, and maybe that would be a safety matter that would cut down on any accidents in that corridor, or maybe help to alleviate some stress on the roadway.
We can follow up on that and see what's possible.
And that's all we can do tonight. There's nothing I can, I can't get and there's no way y'all can answer that question, but if we can follow through on that. And then I know we're very good on our notice of meetings and getting the information out. I'm sorry that someone didn't get that information out when we send this stuff out, and that's why. And sometimes that happens. We've got, I'm sure, a very reliable mail post office stuff, but we try to get it out, and once we get it, send it out, it's presumed it goes to that address. So I apologize to anyone that didn't get a notice. We always intend to get all the notices out, make sure everything's done on our behalf. So apologize for that. All right, I'll look for the board for any other.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
there is one other thing, and that is that I would like to make sure that whatever we're approving tonight does have this, the 6 foot, and did I hear that it would be a solid wood fence?
It'd be a solid
Vinyl.
fence. It could be a vinyl or wood.
Well, I thought I heard wood, but tell me what I heard.
Would that be a vinyl or wood 6? That's what I think.
You just said it wouldn't be a picket fence.
It wouldn't be a picket fence, but it'd be a solid.
I'm sorry, I did not specify material, and I don't, if we need to, we can, but no, it would be a solid fence, wood or vinyl, but it would not be a picket fence. It was mentioned that the current fences, you can see right through it. It'll be a solid fence.
Right.
But I don't know, I can't say right now if it'll be wood or vinyl.
And I would think staff and as long as it's in there, that it'd be 6 foot solid fence of some sort. That's something y'all could work out with staff on details. Would that satisfy?
That would be okay. But I'd like that in there.
Say, and Mr. Chairman, if there's, if you are ready for a motion, I would be happy to make the motion. since this
Yes,
isn't my
sir. If you'd
district.
like to make the motion, we'd be happy to take.
I
Oh, wait a minute.
yeah, I just wanted
Ms.
to.
Larson has one.
Yes.
Go
Well,
ahead.
I wanted to be clear, Paul, who all gets a notice about a meeting?
State code requires that we send a letter to all the property owners that are directly adjacent to the property in question. So if there are ones that are one removed or, diagonal or a little bit down the road, they're not going to get one. So we're going to send letters to those directly adjacent. And in the instance of like the road frontage, we would go to the property directly on the other side of the road. So it is rather limited, but again, we also rely on combination of that, the public hearing notice that we do in the newspaper, and then as a courtesy, we also put out the red signs in front of the property.
Right, okay. Thank you for that, because I just want to make sure that, that we are clear, but I do believe that Ms. Brewer does go up against, so she probably should have been notified.
So we'll check to make sure it goes out, but again, once we put it in the mail,
Yeah.
we don't send everything registered mail, so we're not able to track it. It just goes out first class,
You
regular
might
mail,
as well
so.
have sent it to who knows where. I won't even get into my own personal issues with the post office. And then, so, thank you, Paul, that was all. And the only other comment that I had was that I had, when this was talked about, I did very much advise that the neighbors be talked to, just because having been here, plus on the school board, I know that when there's change about, I would just encourage anyone moving forward, just to make sure that you reach out with to your neighbor. I get not everybody's gonna always agree or going to want to, even if you make the effort to go out and talk to your neighbor, doesn't mean that they're gonna come along, but it does help. So, and I think it shows respect for your surrounding neighbors. So that's all. So sorry for the interruption, Jim.
Oh, no. All right, Jim.
Okay,
You're up.
if that's okay, I will move the motion with the amendment that we add the 6-foot solid fence provision to the resolution.
Roll call, sir, please.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. Okay, next we're on number 4, SUP-21-0013.2631 Lake Powell Road, Tourist Home. Tom, welcome, sir.
Much going on.
Gotta take everything off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Mr. Brandon LaPatina has applied for a special use permit to allow for an entire 3-bedroom home to be used as a tourist home. The property is located at 2631 Lake Powell Road. The property is zoned R2 General Residential, is designated low-density residential on the 2035 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map, and is located inside the primary service area. This use is considered a tourist home because the owner will live off-site during the time of the rentals. No changes to the footprint of the home are proposed, and the owner will live at the adjacent property. Staff considered the home's location, parking provisions, and the appearance to be favorable factors in the evaluation of the application. Staff is recommending conditions intended to mitigate the impacts of the use and preserve the residential character of the home. Such conditions include restrictions on commercial signage and lighting, and any future expansion of the use would require an SUP amendment. At its August 4th, 2021 regular meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 6-0 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Staff finds the proposal to be compatible with the 2035 Comprehensive Plan, zoning ordinance, and surrounding development, and recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve the application subject to the proposed conditions. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Questions?
So I don't have any questions. I just believe that previously, we have not approved something because someone was not going to be on site, or they changed it and they were going to be on site, but he's going to be right next door. So I just wanted to say that if this should be approved, just making sure that we're not, if someone were to say, well, you didn't do this, but I think since the applicant would be right next door, that's a different situation.
Yeah, the owner, I don't know if you can really see that, the house right behind, it's kind of the larger house, is the owner of the one in the red square.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Holster, your last one for
Okay,
tonight.
my last one here. There were several points in favor of this application request, which was consistent with the guidance for tourist homes in the 2035 and the proposed 2045 comp plan. The applicant lives, as he said, at the 2635 Lake Powell Road, adjacent to the subject parcel. The parcel is not located within any major or minor subdivision, and the properties to the south are all designated rural lands on the 2035 Comprehensive Plan land use map. A planning commissioner wished the moratorium on tourist homes had remained in place until the 245 comp plan was adopted. However, this application seemed to be consistent with the proposed language. I believe the rest of the planning commissioners agreed with the commissioner's view on consistency and voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the special use permit request to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you for your service tonight. All right. I'll go ahead and open it up for public hearing.
None?
None, so I'll go ahead and close it and look to the board for.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the approval of this. I know the house well, I know the family, and the fact that the owners are really right behind that house on a property that on one side is adjacent to wooded property, that it's at the very end of Lake Powell Road before it makes its turn down toward what was the dam at one point. It seems to be something that's not going to be in any ways intrusive on a subdivision, so I'm willing to support this one. I was less enthusiastic and voted against an application we approved last year, the year before, I guess, a little further down Lake Powell Road, where just before the turn to the airport, in part because the owner was not a local resident, and in part because I thought it really was kind of right in the middle of some residential development that was much more likely to be affected by it. But so this one looks better to me. Yes, that's the motion.
Great. That's a motion. We have a motion. Roll call, sir.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, next, number 5, disposition of James City County property for the widening of Croaker Road. Paul, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening.
Good
The
evening.
widening of Croaker Road to 4 lanes from Richmond Road to the James City County Library first began in 2012. Project is now fully funded, fully designed, and has moved from the engineering phase into the right-of-way phase. Construction phase, which is expected to take 2 years, will begin in fiscal year 2023. Improvements will include not only 2 additional lanes for vehicle traffic, but also facilities for pedestrians and bicyclists. Enhanced landscaping will be installed since this project is located within the Norwich Community Character Area, and existing overhead utilities will be located underground as authorized by the board on October of 2019. As part of this project, several easements are needed from the county on the Williamsburg Regional Library property located at 7770 Croaker Road. These include temporary construction easements for slopes, ditches, entrances, and basins. You'll see that there in the red. There's a permanent drainage easement as well. You'll see that there in the green. And then 2 permanent utility easements for the benefit of JCSA. One there is shown on blue, and the other one is just underneath the title block in the upper right-hand corner. Just kind of got covered up there, but it's about the same size for the benefit of JCSA. Staff recommends adoption of the resolution authorizing the county administrator to execute those documents necessary for the granting of the utility easements, which are necessary to complete this roadway improvement project. and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, go ahead and open up the public hearing. Any speaker cards? Close the public hearing, look for the board for direction.
Motion to approve.
Motion for approval. We have a motion on the floor. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Jim, you still there?
Hello.
You lose him?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye. All right, next board considerations. First on there is approval of the $85 million for the Williamsburg Landing bond issuance. Liz, welcome.
Good evening,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, members of the board. For the benefit of the record, I'm Liz Parman, Assistant County Attorney. The Economic Development Authority has approved an $85 million bond issuance for the Virginia Williamsburg Landing to refinance existing bonds and for other various improvements. This is not a debt of either the EDA or the county. The Internal Revenue Code requires that the Board of Supervisors approve issuance of these bonds as set forth in the resolution in your packet. The EDA and the county's bond attorney, Chris Culp, from Hutton, Andrews, and Kurth, have reviewed and approved all the documents associated with this application, and the applicant's attorney, T.W. Bruno, I believe is here in the audience and available for questions.
Any questions? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the resolution.
Thank you, sir. Motion on the floor. Roll call, please, sir.
You want to?
You want to wait a second?
Jim, you still there? No, we've lost Jim.
Larson?
Yeah,
Momentarily.
we're losing him quick.
We got used to not being here.
It's only the three.
We could talk about how Williamsburg Landing is going to spend their
That's
$85 million. We could talk about what we did during our summer break.
Well, that's going to take a while
For
for
our
me.
summer- What did we do on summer vacation?
Here we go. Roll.
Sorry.
That's all right. No problem at all. Roll call, sir.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Ms. Larson?
Oh, on the Williamsburg Lane? Aye. Aye.
Ms. Sadler? Aye. Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, appeal of notice of violation for 5032 River Drive. Liz, back again.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Gregory Bean, he's here in the audience. He's been waiting patiently tonight. He's here on behalf of his client, Mr. Danny Patterson, to ask for a postponement of his appeal to the next month's regular board meeting on October 12th. The county attorney's office has no objection to that request. We're working with Mr. Patterson on a settlement to address the violations on the property. You can come up and answer.
Mr. Chair, Board, we appreciate your time. My name is Greg Bean. I'm with the firm Gordon Reese Scully Manzucani here in Newtown. We represent Danny Patterson, who is the property owner. We met with Ms. Parman as well as Mr. Wilson from the county about 10 days ago. We are working on a potentially agreement. We're also putting R.A. Coleman, who is the contractor, on notice, so we're trying to get them involved to try and get a global settlement. We've also been in discussions with Mr. Patterson's neighbor, Gary McSherry, who is also interested in potentially combining to get some settlement together. So there are a lot of moving parts. We are making progress and active progress, so we're asking for a deferral until the next month's meeting. Hopefully we'll have a settlement by then. If not, then we will proceed on our appeal and present our case.
So we're looking for a postponement to what date would that be?
October 12th, I think she said.
Does this require any action on our part? Do we need to?
Yeah,
approve.
we'll have to have a motion to postpone until October 12th.
So moved.
So moved. All right, roll calls, please, sir.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Yes, aye.
There you go.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
board. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. All right. Nothing for closed session. Next is adjournment until 1 PM on September 28th, 2021 for a business meeting.
So move.
So moved. Roll call, please, sir.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we're done. Thank you. Drive safe.